Today I'm making a cutting board for a commission, and the client wants initials on the cutting board and a border, and it's supposed to be about a 10 by 14 cutting board with the base of maple. I've got some ambrosia maple, which is nice, and then the inlay will be walnut. So I'm using the same technique I used when I made the crab cutting board, with just a little bit of a twist. And let's go through that and I'll tell you what that is. First thing I did was get the font that they specified. This is called Distant Stroke font, and I basically contacted the maker and paid him for the use of this font, and then got to work. I went ahead and made the font in the size that we wanted, and then I went and worked on the tool paths, and I wanted the letters to be a little bit wider. So what I did was I'm using a V-carve tool path, and I'm starting with a, let's bring that up, I'm starting with a start depth that is a 1/10 of an inch into the material, and then a flat depth at the bottom of the letters of as small as a number as I can put in there, because basically I want the inlay to be about a 1/10 of an inch thick. And so if you look at how that works out, you're going to see that the actual top of the V on the letters is wider than what I've got here, because I'm telling the machine to imagine that this outline is a 1/10 of an inch below the surface of the material. And so if you think about the way a V-bit works, the outside of that V is actually going to come out here on the surface of the material. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. And I'll just bring that up. First we don't need to animate that. First the V-carve, and then the flat at the bottom. I'm using a 1/16 of an inch end mill with a very small 8% pass on each, step over on each pass, so I don't break the bit. And what I'm getting is a flat at the bottom of the letters, and you can see those letters are significantly wider than than the outline. As a matter of fact, the flat itself is the width of the outline. Here, I'll bring up the outline again. You can see, and then I'll bring up the rendering. Do that again. So you can see that the flat is actually the width of the outline, which means that at the top of those letters it's going to be wider, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a little bit wider letter. Okay, so I've got that cut. This is a 1/10 of an inch deep. Actually, it's a 101 thousandths deep, a little over a 1/10 of an inch. Then I work on the inlay part. And to do that, I'll go ahead and get my layers here. I made a mirror image of those letters. All right, and then I'm going to cut everything outside the letters. So let's go on back over to the 3D toolpath, or to the toolpath side, and I'll bring that up, and let's go ahead and reset that preview. And now I'm going to go to the 60-degree V-bit and preview that, and then I'm going to cut out all this with a 1/4 inch end mill. Okay, so all that's cut out now. So if you look at that, you see I have the raised letters, and if everything's done right, the flat on this raised letter is going to totally bottom out in the flat of the of the maple base part. And now I just got to get the outside of this machined. So go ahead and use a 60-degree V-bit, another 1/4 inch end mill, and now you see I've got all that machined out there. And just to make sure that I'm not going to run into my screws that are holding this down, that's where the screws are going to be. So they're well outside the path of the bit. And the final step is to do a cutout where I cut away the waste. So that's the inlay part. So I take that part and I will inlay that into the to the cutting board itself. Now, when I did the inlay part, I actually cut deeper than the depth of these letters out in this waist area, so that I wouldn't bottom out on the waist area. I want to bottom out on those letters, so I actually cut away another 1/10 of an inch from the waist area. So when I clamp this up, these letters should bottom out really nicely and I'll be in shape. So let's go ahead and prep the wood and set up the ShopBot to do these cuts. Here you can see pretty well how this is working. You see that flat area? That's about 101 thousandths below the surface. Got a little 60-degree bevel on the edges. Same thing around here. And now you can see the insert part. I've relieved the background down here 200 thousandths, so this will definitely not meet up with the maple, and that'll allow the letters and the border to bottom out. When you're cutting wood with CNC, you often get a lot of little hanger-oners, so I just use a little brass wire brush to try and knock them off. And here you can see that gap, why I undercut the waist on the walnut so that the letters would bottom out, but not the walnut on, on the maple. I'm using Titebond 3 on this because it's got some water resistance, just in case by accident somebody sticks this in the sink or in the dishwasher. Well, I left this clamped up over the weekend. Now let's go ahead and take it apart. And we'll bring it over to the bandsaw. Now on the table saw, I squared up the piece, trimmed it to size, put a little 7-degree bevel on it. And now I'm going to go ahead and just put my brand on the back. There we are, ready to sand down and finish. Now let's just put on some of my mixture of boiled linseed oil, tung oil, and gloss polyurethane varnish. Let that soak in. We'll do 3 coats of this a day apart, and then we'll do 3 coats of tung oil, boiled linseed oil, and a little bit of beeswax mixed in. Let's let that soak in for a few minutes. Well, I'm pretty happy with the way the piece turned out, and I think my client will be too. Thanks for watching.